I put in a 50 ton to the acre plot because I was told that that's a failure. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to find out if it's a failure or not. You know, that's kind of who I am. I'm either all in or all out. And you know what I found out? I found out the industry is wrong because...
Yeah, my name is Jim Halbeisen, and this is my opinion.
My name is Jim Halbeisen, and we're here for the Growers Mineral Corp podcast. And joining me today is David Armstrong. Dave is located in central Iowa, and he's a row cropper, he's a cow-calf guy, and we're going to talk about the Growers Program. One thing that I wanted to kind of clear the air a little bit, at our the farm show presentations that we make, a lot of people can't understand what we're selling because we talk a lot about the element calcium. What we manufacture is a 10-20-10 fertilizer material that many guys use as a row starter, and then it is also used as a foliar spray. The philosophy of our company is that you make your growing medium, your soil, function to its maximum when you get the calcium level to the proper level. And then after you do that, the soil functions correctly, physically, chemically, and biologically. And then after that, target your fertility. And that's what we do with our product. We feel there are two important stress points in a plant's growth cycle. Number one, when it germinates, and then number two, when it goes through reproductive set. So what we do is apply the fertilizer at the start of the plant's life, you know, in row starter or transplant solutions. Some guys even treat seed with it. And then when the plant does start to go reproductive, we foliar spray. And then the final portion of our philosophy is yield check. Do your strips. Try to figure out if the program is helping you, if the fertility material is helping you. And one thing that's important about fertility material is that we're not just feeding the plant, but we're feeding the biological. And in order to do that, we feel you need to use technical grade ingredients or food grade ingredients. And we believe that you also need micronutrients or trace elements. And since you don't need very much of those in the product or in the plant, you have to keep it in perfect solution. And what we do there is hot mix to make a perfect solution. It's not a suspension that you have to keep agitated. So those are things that we will talk more in detail in the future. But right now, I'm kind of interested, Dave. I'm looking at the weather reports, and they're talking about snow coming down your back door tomorrow, kind of similar to what you put up with last week. So let's talk about the weather you had, and let's talk a little bit about what you're growing out there.
Oh, the weather we had seems like where I'm at here in South Central. Deep River's my town, but I'm near Grinnell. That's about halfway between Des Moines and Iowa City. I live just south of the interstate, so I'm in that corridor. But we've done all right moisture-wise at times, but the last event didn't leave us so snowy. We did get pretty muddy, and that's quickly got away from us, which cattle business and calving, I'm pretty grateful for that. However, it's a double-edged sword. We need moisture. We had 80-degree days of lately, and the grass is greening up. It feels springy, but this event that's coming in, I don't know, not locally here, but I hear upwards of maybe a foot of snow off in some directions, maybe eastern Nebraska and western Iowa, and then up through there. The weather model doesn't show it's going to bother us more than just some light moisture. And then one coming in from the south that it's going to drag up with it shows that it might not make it as far north as I live, but I expect some precipitation. But the weather radio that I use, that I have in my tractor when I'm shoring, it's just been warnings all day long that we're going to have 50-mile-an-hour gusts. And
so are you still on the dry side, Dave?
Oh yeah. I would say so. Topsoil is very dry. I have triticale ordered to go out, and if I was organized, today would be the day to put it in. It's fit. We see a lot of anhydrous rigs sitting, and I would imagine if I had left the farm by now and drive, I would see them rolling. So it looks like it's right.
Mm-hmm. So where are you at with the cattle situation? Let's talk a little bit about that. What kind of cattle you have, and what are you doing?
Expensive cattle, Jim. That's what kind of cattle I got. That's what everybody says. And we predominantly raise. We're like the rest of everybody else. We got black cattle, but I like the red mamas, and we breed with Sim Angus bulls. And we're probably 40% calved in at this point. It's been a great winter for calving. It never comes without issues. We've had some clostridial problems, and we, been doing it for a while. We kind of know what's going on there, but once in a while we have, we didn't miss the symptoms here, or we missed the symptoms here. And I spent all day in the shop just for the purpose of hospitalizing a calf, and we IV'd him, give him 2 bags of lactated ringers, and really worked hard. Thought at one point we had him coming, but the crash came and we missed him, and that's hard. I don't care. Here in the cow business, you got livestock. It might seem like, well, they're just one of the group who cares, but it breaks my heart to see a dead one laying there. I don't like it. And, I don't think anybody in the industry does, actually. So we're pretty partial to our animals. We do everything we can to protect them. It's the weather that we have. If it's a strong storm coming, we spend the time, thank goodness for a cab tractor. We spend the time with them.
So one thing I would like to talk about, Dave, is the growers program and quality of plant tissue, and how you look at that when you're feeding cattle, and how much of a certain amount of your grains go in the market, a certain amount of it's going as feed. So talk a little bit about that, and then talk about where you think the quality is at and how that relates to the growers program.
Yeah, I got a couple thought processes here, but as far as the quality of my feed, I run a hired man here, and he's worked for other operations, and he says all the time, he says, I can't believe you don't put more supplementation in your feed, in your TMR, than what you're doing. And he says, I'm impressed with what your cattle's doing, your performances. But I watch them guys, and they've got this and that and a lot of different things, and they're adding this and that. And said, you're adding your forages and your own feed stuffs. And he said, my word, he says, I just think you got the right program here. He said, I don't know why they're doing what they're doing. Well, I do. Because they got a nutritionist in there, for one thing, that wants to balance the ration for them, and they rely on him. And I'm not trying to beat them type of guys up, but I want to talk about the growers program in this respect. It's a company that's taught me to make my own observations. And so the quality of my forage, I believe, is directly related to something that sometimes you trip and fall in good luck more than you do created, okay? That's why it's luck. Mm-hmm. But when I was early on in this program, I was able to get a hold of all the gypsum, a.k.a. calcium sulfate, that I could handle. And we broadcasted over our row crop acres pretty generously, to the place of even what most people would scrutinize. I put in a 50-ton to the acre plot because I was told that that's a failure. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to find out if it's a failure or not. And this company challenged me for that, not necessarily to that extreme, but, that's kind of who I am. I'm either all in or all out. And you know what I found out? I found out the industry is wrong, because I grew a crop of beans, and that is just 1/3 of an acre. But I grew a regular crop of beans in that 50-ton to the acre replicated plot the first year, like a normal crop would be. Did it break yield barriers or do anything fantastic? No, I'd probably say not, with an exception. And this is your question, Jim, about the quality of my forages. So when I did this, somehow or another, the word got out it happened, and an undergraduate student from Iowa State University visited my farm and asked me about this lunacy, and he wanted to know if he could collect soil samples. I don't care, give me some information from it. So that went on, and I got, about his information off of soil samples, what a soil sample would give. There was no dramatics in it. But the thing he started doing is he started tissue sampling, and he also started doing some seed sampling. And he'd pull it right during the time of growth, and then up to maturity. And every time that he would give me a report back from that, I was heads and tails above the industry in quality, every time, in quality.
Right.
So my pursuit of calcium, and then not necessarily always in the form of the calcium sulfate, but always in the form of a soluble calcium, is no doubt my prerogative, and that's the growers program. That's the thing that I was first introduced to, and you alluded to at our farm show booths. People say, well, what are you doing here? And that's a valid question, because we put up signs that say you have a need for calcium. In Iowa, we have calcareous soils, okay? So if we pull a test to check for calcium, you're going to find calcium. But the issue is you got to have available calcium. And
Exactly.
so if you have available calcium in the position of the nutritive value of it, so you get uptake, so you have good forages and feedstuffs, that's where I want to be, Jim. That's my cattle operation.
Well, the one thing, Dave, that the new research is showing that the botany biologists are doing is that, and we talk a lot about this, is feeding the plant through the biological in the soil. And this term that the Australians figured out called rhizophagy, where the plant root is actually ingesting the microbe. And see, the science of that is saying that once that plant gets the nutrition, it pulls in the microbe, it takes the wall down of the microbe, pulls the nutrients out, and then expels the microbe back out into the soil. This, according to plant evolution, is the way the plant's designed to grow. And see, once it grows that way, it builds its own immune system. And see, this mimics what we're doing in the human species, trying to feed the biological in our biome to build our immune system to protect us. And they claim that the plant will do the same thing. And then once you do that, that's where you are getting the quality in the tissue, and the animals reflect that quality when they consume that.
Yeah, it's just like my 50-ton test. It's the same thing. We make our own visual observation, but we have some tutorial for understanding, so we know where we're going to head. Right. And that's one thing that I pledge allegiance to the Growers Mineral Solutions Company for, is helping me to know what visual understanding I need to head to. What is it my outcome that I want to do? We can grow bushels. Right. And we can do that, and there's plenty other methods out there to grow a lot of bushels. But what do we do to grow quality? I had a man call me this morning, Jim, and he wanted to know, he says, can I get 5 gallons of GMS from you? And I said, gee, I don't recognize your phone number. Who are you? And he said, I'm John Doe. And I said, oh, yeah, I do too know you. And I said, so what's going on with you? I said, I tried calling you a year ago, couldn't get hold of you. Well, he said, I had some physical maladies, but he said, I'm back to growing produce for myself and my neighbors. And he said, they depend on me. And he said, he said, there's nothing like knowing that you're growing a quality product. And I said, how do you know it's a quality product? He said, because of the way it lasts, the shelf life, and because of the way it tastes. He said, I've got my neighbors addicted. And he says, so now I need you to get me some GMS so we can take care of this addiction.
Hey, Dave, one thing I would like you to comment a little bit on is how you use that product, for your own crops. Are you in-furrowing? You're doing some foliar feeding? You do that on corn, you're feeding the cattle. You're doing that with hay, soybeans. Kind of cover how you use the product.
Yeah, so, I use the product in basically just a couple simple mannerisms. The main thing that I do is row start with the product, and we foliar. Unfortunately, I foliar when I see, a need for it rather than regimentally. But when we row start, we use an amount just a little more than the recommendation because of my testing, my observations, and some other people have done the same thing. So our manner of row start is through research to understand the complete package works the best if we use a low total dissolved solid water and make the product 100% wet. So in other words, I use 7 total gallons of growers, but I use 14 gross gallons of mix. And my planters split, and 4 gallons of that would equal 8, if you're following me, would be in a 2x2 position.
Gotcha.
And the 3 gallons would be a total of 6, would be in the furrow. And
Gotcha.
research has shown that gives us a wetting zone, and it gives a complementary feeding program to the microbes of the soil. And so I get conversion, and I get a very good start, very vigorous start.
Yeah. No, again, a run hog is always a run hog. So we found that starting position, and see, with you putting water in with the product, you expand the wetting zone so that when that seed germs, that root is always growing in soil that's affected by the product. And see, that we think that invigorates the biological life to really make the plant more productive.
Yeah. No, that's, been on the program as long as I've been, north of 30 years. My fertility inputs with my calcium input and that type of management is way south of what dollars-wise is what a lot of producers are. And I've had fellows challenge me that truly want to look at what I'm doing, and they say that won't work. And I say, well, come to my field. And they walk out shaking their head, and they say, I'm scared to try it. And I said, what scares you? Well, I've got a very good friend. He comes all the time, and we walk the fields, and he's mathematical as everything, and we do yield checks. And he says, well, I think you're behind me. Of course he's going to say that, with a little smile on his face. But he knows I'm not, and he's admitted that to me. He said, I'm stricken with fear. And I said, well, you got to do a little testing for yourself. You have to do your visual observations, and that just bothers him.
Yeah, well, the issue is, the establishment says it takes so many pounds to grow so many bushels. And see, our whole argument to that is, what are you raising? You're raising sugar, C12H22O11. Yeah, you need some fertility in there, but not to the volume that they're talking about. And see, when you go to those higher volumes, escape into the environment is very significant. And see, that's an issue that the rest of society is looking at very, very closely. And see, we agree from that standpoint. Plus, we think you imbalance the plant tissue. And that imbalanced plant tissue, the health of the consuming animal is not going to be as good.
Well, I found out through my own visuals, back to this, I use nitrogen, and I feel nitrogen has value, but what's the amount? So, we vary the rate, and we take yield tests and understanding, and then we start to get a feel for where I need to be. I'm very low compared to most producers, or even the recommendation with the amount of nitrogen I'm using. Probably 0.4 to get a bushel rather than 1.2.
Right.
And that's biological, Jim, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
We're happy.
Absolutely.
We're happy to the biological.
See, Dave, when I got out of school, the 1.2 rule was, well, it was actually 1.5. They whittled it to 1.2, and now you've got some of these articles that are suggesting maybe 9/10, 8/10. We have guys that have been fussing with 5/10 for 35 years. So again, we know it can be done. It's just countervailing to the establishment. So it's not acceptable at their point. So the last question I've got for you, Dave, is somebody that's never ever heard of Growers Mineral Corp, and they want to talk business with you, where do you start? Do you start with fertilizer, or do you start with getting oxygen into the soil with calcium?
Yeah, that's a great question. My promotion always is, um, well, I can mimic Ferry a little bit because I can buy into how he does this. So it's a great help to explain this, but I explain it as a three-legged stool: physical, chemical, and biological. And I love physical. And I get in my cab tractor, I turn my Sirius XM on, and I listen to my radio station, and I got dirt flying behind me. And I'm a farming son of a run, you know. I mean, I like it. And who doesn't?
Yep.
So I've affected the soil physically now. I get a 5-inch goose grounder, and a day or two later, well, all my physical effectiveness has just went basically up in smoke like it was anyway, but I thought I had something going on. So what do I need to do? Well, I need to change the chemistry. And I understand the cation exchange capacities and how that works. And so how do we do that? We affect the cation exchange capacity with high calcium limestone, calcareous stone, and then we flocculate. So we get oxygen in the profile. So now I've substantiated my physical with my chemical, and now I've made a media for biological to work. And the thing I like to express is, in 1982, when I graduated from high school, there wasn't an eagle flying in Poweshiek County, Iowa. Didn't see one. I got an eagle's nest in a tree in my pasture. They raise eaglets every year. They're probably down there doing it right now. But the thing is, you got to understand is they came here and live here because now they got habitat. What changed was the hog operations in my county, and they went to confinement operations, and now they've got storage units for dead hogs until they come pick them up. But that gives feed, and and they do go there to eat. But we got to make habitat. So if we make habitat for that biology, pretty soon where we don't have biology, we do have biology because now they've got habitat. And that's what I think that we're doing with Growers Mineral Solutions. I
agree with that totally, Dave. So I think, Dave, we've covered it pretty well. I really appreciate it. You want to make a forecast on cattle prices for these guys?
You know, we sat and talked the other day, and about 2 weeks ago, 3, they said, yep, cattle prices turned the corner. We're going to probably stabilize or slowly pull south. And it wasn't but 2 days ago, they say we can't just get a handle on this. What is pushing this? We're going into new territory for highs.
Yep.
And the commentator said this: we don't have no water. And I totally agree. Because this will be my 3rd year of very low or minimal pasture. But we made a lot of hay last year because we had adequate moisture going in. And there's plenty of hay sitting around, and I'm going to fill my barns and my place is full of this hay of my own, and I'm going to find guys that I like the way they do things and buy from them that sell, because I'm skeptical myself on how much pasture we're going to have, because we grazed her pretty hard, and we're going to go into low pastures early in the season. So I think I think the speculators are seeing that. And I think that if they see a mass exodus of the mama cows continue, it's going to be a rugged go.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, I believe the fresh meat market is going very, very nicely. People aren't going out to eat every 24/7s, and they're making hamburger at home. And that demand is coming to the individuals. It's not going through corporate America. So I think that demand is going to stay there. If the demand stays there, and we keep bringing these heifers to market, I think you're absolutely right. We're going to go into new territory. And I read it in Florida. I read it in Nebraska. I read it in the East Coast. They're all saying the same thing. So we'll hang on to our hats.
I'll give an explanation of that truth. I got a check tub laying here on the dash of my pickup right now, Jim, and I took 4 cattle. We're kind of lucky. We're 30 miles away from a kill plant here where I'm at. And I took 4 cows in there and a bit shelly. They'd had their calves and weaned off, and I'd fed them for 60 days. Old cows,
Mhm.
them easy feed. Took them in there, Jim, and they don't run cut or can or boner here. It's a straight bid.
Yep.
My straight bid last week for them hot carcass weight was $2.62, Jim.
Wow. Unbelievable.
That makes a 565-pound carcass $1,200 to $1,300. Okay.
Yep.
And some of them cows I didn't give more than that for, and I've had them for 4 years.
I understand.
So the hamburger market is strong. That's the point I'm making. It is strong.
Oh, exactly. Okay, Dave. Hey, I
All
appreciate
right,
it.
Jim.
Fine job, man.
Always good.
Hey.
Always good.
We'll do her again sometime.
All right.
Take care,
Thank you
man.
for thinking of me. Have a good day.
No doubt.
This podcast has been brought to you by Growers Mineral. Please visit growersmineral.com.